Welcome to the Men of Iron podcast, changing a culture one man at a time. At Men of Iron, we equip men and grow godly leaders through creating and sustaining one-to-one and micro-group mentorships. Go to menofiron.org for more info. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Men of Iron podcast, episode 22. It's Steve and Justin live from Manheim, PA. J-Dub.
Hey.
Welcome.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for joining me.
Wet outside.
Yeah, it's like we said to Michael earlier, it's always sunny in Manheim, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Just not today.
Just not today. Fake news. It's always raining.
Episode 22 is brought to you by Castle Signs, professional vehicle branding, including design, fleet graphics, vehicle wraps, and much more. Go to castlesigns.com and drive your brand with Castle. Introduction today is our special guest, Michael Ferrari. Michael is a writer, speaker, husband, and dad of 4 kids. 2017, he co-founded Yolk Ideas with his wife, Susan. Yolk Ideas is a creative consultancy helping small to medium-sized brands build assets to promote their business and client relationships. He has been a person of faith since childhood and keeps his values central to his approach to life and business. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
What's going on, man?
Oh, just enjoying the rain, trying to keep my hair from getting frizzy.
Does your beard get frizzy?
It does.
Yeah.
I have to put special products in it to keep it tame.
Nice.
But that's a whole podcast on its own.
Yeah.
That's an epic beard. I feel bad for just the listeners of the podcast. They don't get to witness the beard in its full force.
Glory. We should
We
describe
could
it.
describe it.
Yeah. There's how far down does it go? And is this the longest it's ever been?
I've had it longer. My joke about that is, and it's a dad joke, is how long is your beard? Or they'll say, how long have you had it? It's like, well, for about 10 years, because obviously they think I'm talking about length and I'm talking about time.
Yeah.
But it's long enough that I have to wear a shirt at night because when I sleep, it tickles my.
Well, that's a good description for our
Anybody
listeners.
who's thinking about getting into bearding, like there are travails.
It's not an easy life to be this good looking.
That's right.
Well, we are getting into my next question here as we discuss the tickling of Michael's beard. But who is Michael Ferrari? Tell us about yourself.
So I've got a birthday coming up. It's a big birthday.
Oh man,
I'll be
21.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be turning 21, so I can catch up with my ID. No, I'll be turning 40.
Wow!
So,
Congrats.
yeah, we're just discussing what event or what plans are we going to do. And birthdays are hard because I'm a people person, and so always think that I want a big party or something. In the end, I think I probably just want to sit and chill. And,
Yeah, I was going to ask if Susan has a big bash planned for you. Maybe you don't even know about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. We've been talking about it. It's like a negotiation where it's like, well, what about this idea? And it's like, what about that? But yeah, it's just life is so crazy right now. And I mean, it always is. And I'll probably look back when my kids are all teenagers and be like, I don't know what I was thinking. It was easy back then.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we got my wife, Susan, and I. We've lived here locally in Manheim since 2011. And we have our 4 kids, Cole, Cohen, Campbell, and Wilder. So they're in middle school and elementary school and
Awesome.
rocking
Awesome.
their worlds and doing their thing. So yeah.
So cool. Michael is part of Barron Nation, which is a very
Deep nation.
deep-rooted club, I think
Yeah.
is the way to put it. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
People that are from Manheim are very passionate about Manheim.
Yes. Yeah. And it's great. I think there's definitely not an attack on small town life, but it's definitely hard to keep the positive side of that, everybody knowing everybody, because in the land of just living in the world of the internet, everybody's perspectives and their understanding is so much broader than it ever has been, to accentuate the value of, listen, just because there can be local drama doesn't mean that we should,
Right.
put up walls and keep people out. So it's a great little town and the school's great. It's interesting because I've heard people say, there's a lot of teachers and administrators and people within the district that are believers or followers. And so it's probably the closest thing you'll get to a Christian education in a public school.
It's awesome.
and we've enjoyed that. That some people could feel that that's a negative thing, but we've enjoyed the value centric kind of nature of the school.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you ready for take 5?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Question 1 for take 5 is: Are you a morning guy? Why or why not?
I am a morning guy because I have to be, not because I want to be. But I would much prefer to stay up like till 12, 1 o'clock and I don't know, do whatever, write music and hang out or do whatever. So I'm much more of a night
That
owl.
sounds like you.
Yeah, we are in the same boat.
Yeah.
I hear you. Why do you have? How early do you get up now?
So the alarm goes off at 6, so
Yeah.
it's not too bad. But our kids have to be at school by 7:30, so it's like brutal in the mornings. Yeah.
I like morning because of coffee, I think, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I drink coffee all day long, and I'll
It's
drink
not
it.
a morning thing.
I'll drink it into the night.
No, I do
Coffee
that
and
too.
mornings are not mutually associated. Yeah.
All right, question number 2 is: Who or what inspires you, Michael?
Oh, interesting. I think comedians. I love comedians. I like artists or entrepreneurs. Anybody who has to do a thing, and they are literally the only person that believes that it's worth it or worthy. Not because any other endeavor where it's a team environment is bad. I think that there's just as many challenges and there's benefits in that as well. But there's something about people who like just screw it. I'm going to do it and I don't care. That level of belief is like, it takes some cojones.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who's your favorite comedian?
Boy, that's a tough one. Man, there's a bunch of them. I really like Sebastian Maniscalco. I watched just recently. He's funny.
Okay.
But so we watch the Comedians in Cars show all the time, and I like them all.
Oh, yeah.
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 It's a great show. All right, question number 3 is: What's the best and worst part about owning your own business?
Well, I mean, what I just described about people I admire is also the thing that's the hardest. I mean, you feel like, there's people that are on your side, but they're not in the room every day, telling you, hey man, it's going to be a great day, and if I'm not my own, cheerleader, and if my wife and I are in a funk where we're just like, what are we doing? We're the only ones there that are going to be like, it's really going to be okay.
Right.
So trying to find a network of people that you can reach out to and interact with on a regular basis is a big deal. And I think being confronted with, when you work in an organization, especially a larger organization, and you're salaried or you kind of work the same hours every week and you get a paycheck, there's like a false sense of control and stability that it's easy to buy and go, well, it'll all be fine because the paycheck is coming next week.
Right.
And so every day and every week to be confronted with the reality that like, hey, this whole thing could crap the bed and we'd be, that would be something that's hard, but also invigorating. I guess I wouldn't want to do it any other way at this point.
Awesome.
Do you feel like, sorry, that's a follow-up. Do you feel like you've been always wired that way? Or is this something that's developed? And is it something that you and Susan both kind of naturally felt that way? Or was that something that you've, as a couple, have developed as well?
Yeah. Probably. It's probably been hardwired into both of us at some point throughout our lives. My dad owned businesses, and so I worked for him. And I think there was like a desire that we've done it wrong too before, because as an entrepreneur, when you work in a business, they call it, you're an entrepreneur. And so the idea of like, I take this on as if it were my own, that can get really dangerous really quick, because then you start overstepping bounds and you start like going over your head, other people's heads and authority. But yeah, I think that right now, at least, it seems like this is the right thing at the right time. It's probably the best way to put it.
Awesome. Question number 4, we kind of already touched on this, but why is Manheim, Pennsylvania so great?
What I love about Manheim, first of all, is it's centrally located within the county. So you can get to Lebanon, there's a really cool resurgence going on in Lebanon, and Lancaster in equal amounts of time. You can get to Lidditz quickly. You can get to 283 and the Turnpike and all of those major thoroughfares. You can get to them quickly. So I think it's accessible, and everything is accessible to you very easily. Also, the people that live here, I think, are very there's a lot of ingenuity. And it's funny because you don't necessarily associate small towns with innovation. But I think that there's actually a lot of innovative thinkers, which again kind of extends from blue collar roots. This town was very much about two things: manufacturing and sort of rural small business. And with those things in the back of people's minds, we come from hard work. We come from necessity is the mother of invention, and those are the two things that you need to be innovative and entrepreneurial. So to me, I look around and I go, the potential here is awesome. So that's why I like it.
Awesome. Question 5 for Take 5 is, what's the best book you read in 2018?
Oh my. So a precursor to the answer is I don't really make resolutions, but this year I did. And my resolution is I'm going to finish the stack of books I'm not kidding. It's literally this high. And they're all in some state of half read. So I can talk about any of the books that I started in, and there's a lot of those. I want to finish a book that's a biography on Winston Churchill. That was a good one. I'm about halfway through that one. I started a book I think it's called The Beginning of Infinity. And it literally unpacks everything from empiricism to, it's like so dense. You can literally only read like 2 pages at a time. So every time I sit down with it, I'm like, I don't know what mood you need to be in to read it, but I'm not in that mood right now.
That's funny.
So that was a good one. But I keep going back to the Stephen Pressfield book, Do the Work. So I read that probably once a year. And I can't imagine not reading that at least once a year. It's such a great book.
Awesome.
So that's a good one, yeah.
Very cool. Well, hopefully you get that stack finished this year.
Hoping is for fools.
We'll do it.
If you have hope, that means you don't have plans.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thanks again for joining us today. We just love to kind of hear how you got here. What has God done in your life? What is he doing today?
Yeah. Is there like a beginning point to that you want me to start with? Or?
Hey, wherever you want to start, man.
Yeah. When were you born? Let's just go track.
Well, I guess it all started back in. So my wife and I have been married for 18 years now. Wow. It'll be 18 years in September. We got married September 9th of 2001. We're in the air when the Twin Towers went down.
Wow.
So we had an auspicious beginning. But so, all these years later, now it's been like, it almost feels like one of those things you look back and go, well, if we could survive that, I guess we could survive anything.
Yeah.
So, and then for a number of years I worked, I started out in sales and marketing for a landscape company. And then for a number of years worked at a church that's a regional church called Lives Changed by Christ. And they have a couple campuses. And that was like a major chunk of the last decade. So I worked there for 8 years. And then in 2017, we started Yolk Ideas. And it was like one of those things where I think the process for us has been, in a lot of ways, it's become a tool for us to learn about ourselves and each other and how our relationship works, almost like the work we do and the people that we work with, even though it's great work and they're great people and we've learned lessons about being in business from them. That's almost like an ancillary function of the business, and it's more about our almost personal journey inward. I don't know how the Latin phrase goes, but it's essentially, he is victorious who conquers himself. And so I think that's a huge part of what we're doing right now, is trying to conquer ourselves. And it sounds very, I don't know, very Eastern or Zen or something like that. But in a lot of ways, like, what else is there?
Right.
So
it reminds me of, when Jesus says, die to yourself. There's like this process of knowing and recognizing what's in ourselves and what's not of the Lord and what is, and pursuing that in his, I don't know, maybe I'm taking that the wrong direction, but I
think the thought process behind a lot of those concepts is very much, what's that you can either have what you want or what you're afraid of. Either way, you get to be right. And so that idea might be a Henry Ford quote. I'm not sure. But the idea that we have it within ourselves to achieve or accomplish whatever it is that we set out to. And a lot of times we use our internal conundrums and our baggage almost as an excuse as to why we shouldn't accomplish those things. And when you add on top of it theology that tells us, that, well, I need to wait, and waiting on the Lord is essentially waiting for nothing, waiting until God just somehow waves his magic wand and drops a business plan in our lap. And there's a lot of people who are languishing underneath bad theology because they think that somehow pursuing what it is that they dream is pride. And that's a very destructive idea. And in a lot of ways, not putting yourself out there is its own kind of pride. So you could make the argument that if you don't pursue what it is that deep down inside you're made to be, you are being very prideful because you're more afraid of failing than you are of doing. And in some ways, failure is just a mark on the wall that says you tried something.
Right.
I know that those are all those cliches that, thinkers and thought leaders and entrepreneurs use, like, well, fail forward and all that stuff. But I think that there's some biblical grounds for conquering yourself is that failing forward idea. But you have to go on the journey of conquering yourself in order to do, and in order to conquer yourself, you have to do. So it's like this weird catch-22. So yeah, I like the idea. I like the marriage of those things.
That's cool. And kind of a follow-up, like, how did you and Susan get to that point? Like, what was the trigger for you guys to move this? I mean, not saying that necessarily the things you were doing before weren't in line with that kind of thought process, but what was the push towards, hey, let's strike out and do something even more explicitly entrepreneurial as a couple and as a family?
Yeah. So you're like kind of asking like that when to jump question, how did you know? Well, in our case, it was a little easier. In 2016, we went through probably one of the most painful things that we've ever had to go through, which, without getting into details and the messiness of it, my tenure at the church didn't end the way that we would have wanted it to. So we kind of had to part ways, and there was a whole bunch of stuff there, lessons that I learned in the aftermath and through the healing process of realizing that people are people, and my expectations that people who say that they're a certain caliber of Christian should behave a certain way, that's a false expectation. That there is no difference between saved people, quote unquote, and not saved people. People are people. And so trying to shed that expectation that I'm placing upon others, and then holding them captive to what I think they should do is hard. It's a horrible way to treat people, stealing their independence and stealing their autonomy and their humanity. So that's been hard to learn. But so the answer to the question, when to jump, like some of it was made for us in the sense that I suddenly had a lot of free time that I wasn't planning on. But at the same time, I did start the process of, well, do I want to pursue a life in ministry? Is this really what I want to keep doing? Working at churches and helping people and the counseling stuff and doing weddings and funerals and playing, I'm a musician and did a lot of worship stuff and music writing and that, playing on the weekends in churches. And is that the future for our family and for a career path? And so, and I still do some of those things on the side on weekends as we start the business. But I think ultimately, I missed the days of working in a blue collar field where I would drive around with my wife, and she can tell you that this is what would happen. And I would say, oh, I planted those trees, or I built that wall, that retaining wall over there. We laid the bricks for the sidewalk, And I really missed the idea of building something that I did, not because I necessarily needed the credit. I love to get the credit, and that's another thing that I'm working on for myself. But credit saps your hope and your dreams. But I think more to be able to have something that I can point to and say, yeah, I did something that matters. Like maybe those trees will be around longer than I will, and that's pretty cool. It's hard when you're working with people because at any moment, people can and do throw it all away, and all of that work that you put in with them, you know, and you guys run into this, I'm sure, quite often in your line of work. It's very easy to lose motivation and to get jaded and dejected and just like, why am I doing this if the work itself doesn't matter? Because people can just, you know, throw it all away. And so I think for me, this time is really representative of a moment in my life where I just want to build stuff, tangible things, you know, even if it's intellectual property or creative assets for advertising or, you know, mission, vision, values, or, you know, retail strategy or whatever it is that we're working on. Those are things that you can point to, you know, and say, we did that. We helped them launch. We helped that brand. We built that commercial. You know, those are things. Yeah. So I don't know how I got to that point, but
that idea of build, that sounds familiar, JW.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of what we've established is kind of our theme and our driving force for 2019. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice way to plug that.
You're welcome.
I'm glad we appreciate it on that branding message beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here's our theme. If you could work it in, that'd be great.
Should we start selling dinner table sponsors for the dinner now around that? Yeah.
Listen, guys, if you you haven't already signed up for it.
Exactly. Well, you guys, you and Susan, clearly you have a passion for people and seeing people reach their full potential. Like, where does that passion come from?
So about maybe, well, I don't know. That's a good question. I think I've been able to express it differently in the last 2 years because a friend of mine, he told me this story about this renowned marketing guru came in and spoke to their team at the company he works for and challenged them with this exercise, which is essentially express your purpose in 7 words. So it's the 7-word challenge. I like mulled over that for a long time. When I worked in music ministry, my purpose, for a lack of a better term, was just to help people sing, help them sing, and work through that with volunteers. And like, we aren't here to necessarily shine as performers, although we have to bring our A game and be awesome. What we're here to do is show people what's possible. We're exemplifying for them what it looks like to sing out. So we want to help them sing. But realizing now that my real goal all along for a long time, because I've always been like that, this is a poop joke, but I've been a number 2 guy. So like, I never wanted to be the number 1 guy. I always wanted to be the number 2 guy. I loved partnering with the guy who owned the business or ran the company or whatever and helping him achieve his thing. Part of that was probably because I'm suited to do that from a skill set standpoint, but also I had a lot of fear about taking on the responsibility myself. And now I am like the number 1 guy, but my 7 words are to help others achieve what they dream. And so I'm, in that sense, I'm the number 1 guy and the number 2 guy, which is good. I'm sure my doctor will be happy to know that number 1 and number 2 are functioning just
regular,
fine.
Very regular.
Which leads me to a great story. One of my sons, when he was a little bit younger, I was taking a shower and he comes in and he goes, I have to go to the bathroom. I was like, okay, great, awesome. So he's sitting there, he's just talking to me, which is what you want when you're taking a shower, trying to have thoughts, a small voice expressing all of his ideas. And he's going through the different numbers. There's number 1 and there's number 2. And he's like, at least I don't have to do number 3 and number 4. And I was like, what are number 3? What's number 3? And he said, throwing up. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, then what's number 4? And he goes, duh, diarrhea. It's one of the fantastic things about being a dad. You got all these great stories. Yeah, I'll keep a recording of this then and show it to him when he's like 15.
Oh yeah.
Hey, check out the story about the.
Oh, that's good. Well, kind of talking about helping people reach their full potential, and you guys are passionate about helping people find that. Is there, kind of along the lines of mentorship, because that's what we do, is there somebody in your life that has helped you kind of reach that full potential?
Yeah, there's been a number of people. It's really interesting. It's probably age and experience and time. I don't know that I necessarily added the proper weight and value to input and mentorship and that kind of thing when I was younger, and working in a church or surrounded by great teaching and people who have their masters, MDivs and all that stuff. And you're just like, I'm surrounded by these smart people. The last thing in the world I want to do is go get coffee with somebody who's going to talk more serious stuff with me, and so when your work is kind of like what you guys do, to carve out time on your own that's not work time, to do something that's very similar to what you do in your work, can be exhausting, and not very appealing. But in the last couple of years, the last 5 years, there's been one person in particular who I look to as a mentor, and I tell him that I view him that way, and he's like, "Ugh," he doesn't see himself that way. It's more like, well, let me just tell you what I've done, and then you'll know what not to do.
Yeah.
But he's a great dude. And then there's other people. I think I've been a little bit more intentional about trying to reach out to people that have done what we're doing now for many years, and just go, "Hey, who do you use for a lawyer, and what do you do when this comes up?"
Yeah.
And ask them questions and get their input. So realizing now, the older I get, which is unfortunate that I didn't know it when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I go, oh my gosh, it's unbelievably important, because without that, you're literally just winging it, shooting from the hip.
Yep.
My dad passed away in 2017. So it's been like a journey since then, and it was unexpected and kind of sudden. And, since then, I've been feeling a lot of like, man, I really wish he was around. Not necessarily because he's an expert in any of the things big projects that I'm working on right now, but just knowing that somebody who has your genes, and like I am very much like him, and that he was in his 70s and he survived through all the crap that he's been through. I go, oh, if he made it, then I can make it. That's like, and that's probably one of the reasons that the mentor thing is important, because you want somebody who can sit there and go, me too, and it's all going to be okay.
Yep.
And even if it's not okay, then that'll be okay. That idea that, okay, play out in your mind, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, so let's say that happens. Then what? The then what question is very, very powerful. And it works for success, and it works for failure as well. So, okay, let's say everything that you dream of comes true. You build this business, and people are knocking down your door trying to get a piece of, your wisdom or your product or whatever. Then what? Because if you don't have a good answer for then what with success or failure, then you really don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You really don't. So I think the inward journey and the conquering of self is really to try and get to those answers.
Yeah.
Like, I have some answers. I can answer some of those questions. Well, there's this, then what? And then there's this, then what? But as dads, there's always that thing that's like impeding your progress to the next thing that you want to do. Dave Ramsey, or not Dave Ramsey, I'm sorry. Gungor. What's his name? The marriage guy.
Mark, is it Mark?
Yeah, Mark Gungor, yeah. He talks about how men are always trying to get into their nothing box. We're always trying to get to our nothing box. And so, like, there's a lot of times, if we're honest, where like our kids, eat your dinner so you can go upstairs and do your homework, you can get your PJs on and brush your teeth so you can go to bed. So that what? So then, what's your then what that you're rushing through all of that stuff with them? And it really is like, so I can do nothing and think about nothing and have nobody ask me for anything, and just be a giant selfish extension of my favorite chair. And that's something that I think it's really, really hard for me to battle. Like, you always hear like these people who are entrepreneurial or they're community leaders or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, I wake up every day at 4 and I get through my routine with my kids and they're just so wonderful, and I play with them outside, and then I can't wait to sit down at night and read my favorite books. And I'm like, where are you getting all of this energy? You can't tell me that that's what your everyday looks like. And so
sounds like Garrett.
Yeah, and like for me, I think like I am driven. Like, I will work until I'm absolutely spent and burn out, which isn't healthy, but I would do that. But it's hard for me to maintain that level of engagement and being on, and not just want to, Daddy, you want to play with me? No, I don't.
Yeah, no.
I really don't. Like,
I'm in my
I do,
comfy
but
chair.
I don't. So just hopefully that helps somebody.
I
And there's people who are like, we were going to hire this guy, but now that we know he's a complete tool.
Well, can you just tell people how they can get connected with the Yolk Ideas?
Yeah, sure. We have a website, and you can email us. So it's my email address is Michael, Michael, @yolkideas.com. You can go to our website and check it out. We talk a lot about brand message, and brand voice. The idea, if you don't know your own voice and you don't know what it is that you're trying to say, how are you going to sell something to people and show them that you have something of value that they need? We love Donald Miller stuff and Stephen Pressfield stuff and all of the kind of marketing, Seth Godin, all the marketing gurus of the day. But a lot of it just comes down to knowing yourself. And if you know yourself well enough to understand what it is that you have to offer, then you'll have the courage to make the hard choices where you might have, we've gone through this with clients recently where they have a lot of data from their different agencies that they work with, industry leaders saying, well, this is how you have to do it in order to succeed in this market space. And it's like, yeah, but if what you're bringing to that market is something unique, then you can't just say it the way that everybody else has always said it. You can't just follow those tactics because you're just going to be like everyone else.
Right.
It takes a tremendous amount of courage to be different. I mean, it's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we try and help people with.
Awesome. That's great, man. We'll go to yolkideas.com to see what Michael and Susan are more about and, get some branding genius for your company. We love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you on the show.
Yeah, we love you guys too. Thanks so much for inviting us here. Yeah,
it's awesome, man. Michael's a good guy.
You got a lot of quotes. You for all those books you keep reading, you got lots of good one-liners that are wisdom.
My homepage is brandyquotes.com.
Perfect. I love it.
This guy's so brainy.
That's so much good stuff.
Well, J-Dub, what's going on with Men of Iron, man? We got something big coming up.
Yeah, we're all heading out to Ohio next weekend. We've got our first launch of 2019 out in Canton, Ohio at the One Center. So if you're out in Ohio, we're coming your way. Keep the inches of snow to a minimum if possible so we can drive there safely.
Yeah, that's a good thought because they just got dumped on last weekend, I believe.
Yeah, but it was like nothing. We were like, we got no snow around here in our snowstorm. They were like, got 14 inches and they were like, oh, that was nothing. Like, oh boy.
They're used to it. They're used to it in the Midwest. Well, for more info on Men of Iron, you can go to menofiron.org. You can check out our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Go on there and leave us a 5-star review. Hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, do it.
You can watch the video version on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you again to Michael from Yolk Ideas for joining us today and our sponsor, Castle Signs. We are out.
Peace.